Now let's step back and look at the bigger picture. It's clear that Joseph's rise to power, his dreams, and his position in Egypt were all part of a divine plan. The very events that seemed random, like Joseph being sold into slavery and later becoming second in command of Egypt, were divinely orchestrated. Joseph is now a powerful figure under Pharaoh's command. But while Joseph rose to prominence, his family faced a dire famine back in Canaan. Joseph's brothers, unaware of his identity, traveled to Egypt for grain. Little did they know the brother they had betrayed years ago was now in charge of the very grain they desperately needed. The 7 years of famine have hit, and his brothers back in Canaan are struggling. They've heard that Egypt has grain, so they come to buy food. But when they stand before Joseph, they don't recognize him. He's changed, and they've long since forgotten the brother they sold into slavery. When Joseph sees his brothers, he decides to test them. He accuses them of being spies, an accusation that stirs up guilt and remorse in his brothers. They begin to realize the weight of what they had done to Joseph, and through this test, they show their deep remorse. Joseph overhears his brothers talking among themselves, and what he hears surprises him. They're filled with remorse for what they did to him. One of the brothers, Reuben, even says, "Didn't I tell you not to harm the boy? Now we must give an account for his blood." Their words show that they've been carrying guilt for years. They're not the same men who once sold Joseph into slavery. They believe their current misfortune is the consequence of the betrayal of their brother, and they regret the way they treated him. This moment reveals a profound shift in their hearts. Joseph attends to his brothers and returned the silver they paid by putting it back in their bags. He, however, withholds Simeon and demanded the rest of his brothers do not return to him without their youngest brother, Benjamin. Now the famine has created an economic crisis in Canaan. Grain was essential, and Egypt had become the only place where food could be found. This highlights the economic vulnerability of ancient societies, where a single crop failure could devastate entire regions. In ancient times, grain was the lifeblood of society. The famine in Canaan shows us how critical food security is. Joseph's foresight in storing grain ensured the survival of Egypt, and eventually, his own family. Meanwhile, back in Canaan, Jacob, their father, is reluctant to send Benjamin, his youngest son, to Egypt. Believing he's already lost Joseph and Simeon, he fears losing Benjamin. Jacob's love for his children is evident in his reluctance to part with Benjamin, and this showcases the protective, selfless love of a father.